Lord have mercy.
Thanks, Mohammed. Well, I think we're going to get started. All right, we have the thumbs up from Sam. All right, welcome everybody. Today is June 24th, 2024. We are here for the purposes of a Salt Lake City School District Board of Education retreat. So thank you for joining us. We'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll go ahead and lead us in that today, being that there's nobody else here.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you for the pledge and participating in that. Up next, we have our consent agenda. And so Vice President Williams and I do have a request from a board member to remove item number 2 and place it on the action agenda. I think just for the purposes of tonight, we'll go ahead and place that on the action agenda without a motion. So please let the notes and minutes reflect that board policy A, 2.A, G24 gender inclusion will be on the action agenda for discussion. So I will seek a motion to approve item 1A, purchases/accounting reports, item number 1.
Move to approve the consent agenda as posted.
Chrissy, do you mind getting a little more specific about item 1?
Move to approve the consent agenda with item number 1.
I have a motion. Is there a second to the motion? Motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll start with a roll call vote with Board Member Sika.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Brian Jensen, yes.
Christy Scott, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Excellent. That motion passes. Thank you, Board. And now we will move on to the action agenda. As previously mentioned, Board Policy G24 Gender Inclusion is on the action agenda, and I'll seek a motion so we can start the conversation and discussion there.
Move to approve G24.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion to the motion?
I have something I want to say before we vote.
Please. Thanks, Ashley.
And I know this is a little over time, so I let Bryce know that Mohammed was willing to yield a few minutes of his time to me. I wanted to share some of my frustration with this policy, and specifically my understanding that the committee met less than 48 hours after our business meeting and less than 24 hours after the legislative special session. I feel this timeline does not allow what our board handbook suggests in these situations that we may need: the Council of Citizens, students, and staff members in policy development. I would think for such a weighty policy, we would have been able to use from March until June to establish a process to include impacted stakeholders, not least of all because our community once learned a valuable lesson about standing up for kids. In 1996, my husband walked out of Metal Shop with Mr. Chidester to join hundreds of students leaving school to demand support for gay-straight alliances when this body voted 4-3 to abolish non-academic clubs. That was a legal and cultural battle that students ultimately won, costing the school board legal fees, but incurring a much greater cost in the erosion of student trust. Then board president Mary Jo Rasmussen was quoted as saying, "I can't express how much this decision bothers me to my very soul, because clubs were the reason a lot of kids stay in school. And being asked to make this decision tonight bothers me to my very soul, because the G24 policy is the reason a lot of kids stay in our schools, and an additional reason faculty continue working in our schools." As one student plaintiff in the GSA case stated, the school board decision will only exacerbate the hate and violence that's been going on against us for years. The school board changed significantly in 1998, with members joining expressly to fight that injustice. Yet I am worried this policy change asks us to repeat that history and to kowtow to the cruelty of state leaders, and it asks us to disguise our support for queer students and staff and to co-sign bigotry. The consequences of erasing the word gender from a gender inclusion policy are known. When a school district lacks a policy that enumerates, research shows greater than a 16% difference in the amount of bullying of students and up to a 25% difference in educator comfort in intervening to stop that bullying. By passing these amendments and removing enumeration, we cause harm. With almost half of queer youth in the United States contemplating suicide in the past year, that is not a risk I can put my name on. The counterargument is that however bad or upsetting, we must be compliant with the law. And I first reject the idea we should behave in an unjust way, as multiple laws continue to be interpreted by the courts just as they were in the 90s and in myriad civil rights debates in U.S. history. I further suggest that the redlined version we're presented with risks equivalent noncompliance with a different series of state and federal laws. I've had many questions about the risks to new subgroups that the revised version raises in relationship to House Bill 261 and Board Rule R277358. But even as those concerns continue to be assuaged legally, we've failed to have that dialogue as a full board. The Utah School Boards Association nor our board have, to my knowledge, participated in the legislative dialogue around this, nor presented evidence about the potential loss of up to $2.8 billion public education dollars to the state of Utah should we choose to follow an additional bill, HCR 301, and flout Title IX. Nor have we presented a companion communication plan about how to explain changes to our policy offices and operations to our community who will be highly impacted by these changes. As we spin our wheels trying to find an intersection that meets all of the rules, without much guidance or input, we're giving away more and more of the ground that we learned to stand on in the 90s. Soon we may find ourselves with no place to stand. So without more time, thought, collaboration, or care, I must vote no on these amendments, and ending with a reminder to myself from Kurt Vonnegut's novel, Mother Night. We are what we pretend to be, so we must be careful about what we pretend to be.
Thank you, Board Member Anderson. Is there any further discussion to the motion?
Yeah, if I might add something to that. Ashley, thank you so much. That is, put eloquently. It is, first of all, it is a sad, reality we are dealing with as politics takes over the well-being of our kids. And I only wonder what would those legislators do if one of their kids is an LGBTQ member. That is just like disheartening. Yes, there is law. Yes, there is policy. Yes, there is regulations. But also, we know our district has a history of always being a target. Whether we comply with what the legislators say or not, either way, there is always a backlash. We are like the black sheep of Utah, no matter what we do. So standing alone for that which is right, it's going to take a lot of work. And we should have the courage, to stand up for that, because what we are doing here is to protect those kiddos, to protect their families, to make sure that they feel that they are in the place that they belong in. And if we were to support or just follow what the legislators are telling us there, then we are involved in this process of actually making life harder for our kids who who identifies as they wish. So that's my 2 cents. Standing alone is hard at times, but I know we can do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Christie.
I think that although I appreciate, the words that have been said, I think that I have never seen our district as a black sheep district. I've always seen it as pioneers. I think that, we lead out in so many areas. And although philosophically, we might disagree about whether or not you're compliant with the law, for me, I still think that as an advocate, over the many years that I've been with education, that I can still advocate for the things that I feel are right, even though the law may reflect something different than what my personal belief is. But that's not what we do here at this table, is that we have to make sure that the policies that we put in place protect our kids. And so now it's our due diligence to do that, to make sure that the policies that we have in address the issues that Ashley brought up, whether it's about suicide or bullying or whatever it is, that we make sure that our kids are protected and that there are pieces in place through the policies that we have to make sure that our students feel safe in our schools. Even today, we hear this all the time, that there are still students that don't feel that, but it's our creed to make sure that they do. So I think that going forward, that we always need to keep that in our mind's eye. As you just said, Mohammed, it's important that we make sure that the things that we say and the things that we do and the things that we advocate might be different than what the law says, but then let's be the pioneers and step out and do that. I think that we might not agree, with what is being told of us to do, but that doesn't mean that we have to be silent. So I say let's continue to be a loud voice and continue to pioneer forward and be the best that we can be and make sure that our policies are there to protect each and every one of our students and our faculty.
Thank you, Christy. Bryce?
So I do want to echo many of the sentiments of various board members that have spoken the last couple of minutes. I very much believe that we've been put in between a rock and a hard place on this. Similar to what Christy has said, our personal views or our personal beliefs around what is being prescribed as law are, at least for myself, it's conflicting right now. The policy subcommittee initially came forward with the version that we did and gave it a chance to take a look at it again. We seeked counsel from both district counsel as well as board legal counsel as well on this particular policy and what has become law, and as much as it is difficult to move forward, we are an extension of the legislature and we have to abide by the laws that are put forward. As we've taken a look at the original policy and the revised policy, nothing is changing in the practice of how we're trying to protect kids. So yes, it is very difficult, but I do want to assure the public that the policy subcommittee did take a look at it. We have sought legal advice on how we move forward, and even though it is difficult, I do believe that we must abide by the law, and I will be voting in favor.
Further discussion? Jenny or Brian? Brian?
Bryce, I appreciate your comments, and I think that I referred to some of those comments or to some of those thoughts in my board member report at the end of our last meeting on January 18th. I think that the policy subcommittee takes their work seriously, and when we look at those policies, we are reviewing them. And as Bryce mentioned, we did turn to both in-house counsel and outside counsel. I have reviewed it as well, and I think that it's challenging when we're faced with legislation that conflicts with personal attitudes. But I also think that we are a government entity and that we do have to respond to the legislation that is created. I think that one of the approaches that needs to be taken is to contact the legislature. My assignment is to meet the requirements of educating the students of Salt Lake City and providing them with a safe and secure learning environment. And that's what we were working on as we looked at that in our policy subcommittee meeting. One of the things that I think that is important to recall too is that Board Member Anderson made a reference to other subgroups. There are many other subgroups there that we have to consider. Native Americans indigenous. We, right now, there's all sorts of sentiment with the Jewish community, with the Muslim community. If we were looking at this specifically for every group, then we would have a policy for every group. But the way that we are looking at this right now is inclusive working and learning environments. To me, I am seeing that as an opportunity where we are, well, not an opportunity, the necessity, the requirement that we are ensuring a safe learning and working environment for all subgroups, not just one specific subgroup. And I'm really anxious that we remember that there are many subgroups out there.
Thank you, Brian. Jenny, anything you want to add?
I think everybody has shared it, especially my fellow colleagues in the policy committee. I do have thoughts in regards to, this is why I don't even like this position in the first place. It's very political. And without using my personal bias, I'm trying to, just like Brian's saying, I feel deep down that I'm trying to look at the overall. I'm not far left, I'm not far right. I feel I'm more, a little bit moderate, and I totally agree with that sentiment of, if we do this, I just feel it will just open up more and more problems that we could actually, bypass. And so, as voiced in our discussion in our policy meeting, I am in favor of the change of the adjustments or the rewording and to accommodate law. And so there's just no way, I don't know. I don't know how to put it articulately to share my, I'm listening to Ashley, and I was one of those students who walked out with East High School on that club, because that was my year was 98, but at the same time, I didn't know what I was doing either. My mom saw me on the television camera like, what is she doing? But we walked out of school just to walk out of school, just so not understanding what we were trying to support. But I'm in favor.
Thank you, Board Member Sika. Any further discussion to the motion?
I have a point of clarification, which is just to remind that this discussion will really fail to change that there are decades of evidence regarding how students, staff, and families find these policies and how they play out. So I reject that this is a discussion about personal attitudes or beliefs when there is evidence that shows this decision will harm students. I'll reiterate that some of that evidence is the consequences of erasing the word gender from a gender inclusion policy shows that when a district lacks a policy that enumerates, meaning names what it is for, research shows greater than a 16% difference in the amount of bullying of children based on their gender, and up to a 25% difference in educator comfort in intervening to prevent bullying. In other words, we know that by changing the language of our policy, we will increase bullying of students based on their gender identity, and we will decrease educator ability to intervene to address bullying. So when we say we want to find policy solutions, there's real evidence that guides that policy making, and these removing enumeration we know would cause substantial harm. It's not about belief, it is about decades of policy making around this subject matter.
Board Member Anderson. Any further discussion in round two of our board guidelines on this? Mohammed?
Yes. So I just have one clarification here. One, it's not that I do not want to abide by law. What I do not want to abide by is the hypocrisy behind coming with something that is called law. And if it was like something that came from in-depth and a concern for humans, by all means, I'll be there. But when you come and disenfranchise a group of people, then that is an issue. For years and years and years, segregation always found its ways through society. And this is another method that is used to segregate a group just because they do not like who they are or what they look like or what gender affiliation they're associated with. This is just like an example of so many things that are happening in there. There are so many subgroups out there. They are disenfranchised because of certain policies that everyone just, goes ahead and follows. I respect the law. And I raised my hand, for a purpose of serving my community, not the legislators. Again, I'm here to serve those kiddos, not the legislators who just got up and came up with something that is just started nationally. For what purpose? I wish to God I have an answer to that. But as long as I'm alive, and I'm always going to be here on the side of those kids, because I'm a parent, and I do not wish that for any parent to see their kids suffer and feel disenfranchised or segregated just because of the policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Baden. Any further discussion in round two? All right, seeing none, I think the only thing that I'd like to add is that I just want to, and I don't think applaud is the right word, but for lack of a better word and descriptor about our board. I've been on this board for almost 6 years now and have seen the best and worst of what a Board of Education can look like. And this topic of gender inclusion as it relates to our policies, as it relates to state law, I think is, it strikes a chord in every single one of us for very similar and very different reasons. And the tact and the respect and honesty that I'm hearing from our board, from all different realms of what it means to govern and to make really, really hard decisions, even when those decisions are untenable. The commitment that all of us and you have demonstrated tonight is, it's hard to have a celebration for a tough topic, but I respect where this conversation has gone and the process that we have gone through. So I just wanted to put that out there that I'm proud to serve with each and every one of you, and that I don't think there's any one of us that does not want to support our students. We just have different viewpoints on what that support looks like and how we govern that support through our responsibility of policy and policy development and approval. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you, even though the topic is really hard and strikes a lot of feelings, a lot of realities, and a lot of fears in our community and in our schools. With that, I'll call for a vote, starting with Board Member Bade from Precinct 5.
Mohammed, no.
Ryan Jensen, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
My turn. Jenny Sika, yes.
Ashley Anderson, no.
Nate Salazar, yes. All right, that motion passes. Thank you, Board, again. We'll move on to our retreat topics. You know what? Actually, I think I need just a few-minute break, if that's okay. Could I?
Take a few minute break?
Yeah. Can we come back at 5:36, please? Sure.
us when we go to break.
So now that we're done with the action agenda, do we have to keep streaming?